Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Postgame Pod on the Auburn Undercover podcast. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell. And Jason, an insanely good win for Auburn basketball on the road. I say on the road, I mean, technically a neutral site game, but in downtown Houston. They said on the broadcast it's 2 minutes from their campus. So it's right there. Lots of Auburn fans were there, but regardless of where it was played, Jason, this was an elite non-conference schedule for them. We knew that. We've been saying all offseason, hey, they're going to take their lumps. That's the purpose of this. You're going to lose some games. You're going to learn some stuff. Well, you couldn't have gotten off to a much better start. 74-69, Auburn wins the second half with Tahad Pettiford and Janai Broome standing out. And they go and they win a massive game over the number 4 team in the country, and Auburn is now number 1 in Ken Palm.
It's you really weren't sure what to expect. Now we knew that Auburn played really well the other night. You said, look, defensively, like those guys get after it. They're really smart the way they play defensively, and they're good, and that usually travels. Houston's not a team that scores a bunch. They're not great offensively, and it turned into a street fight. But this team didn't back down. They didn't back down from that street fight. I thought Chaney Johnson was really important early on in this game. You look at him; he had 9 points in the first half. He finished with a double-double against Houston. Played 31 minutes. That's kind of what this has been kind of progressing towards. The last few weeks as we've seen this kind of team start to kind of round into form. But, man, Janai Broome was really good other than, some free throws and some things like that. Man, it was incredible. And then Tahad Pettiford, that's the guy that you expect a 5-star to be. And that's the guy that showed, like, he's been playing top flight competition his whole life. And when the moment was big, he didn't care. He just kept playing. And so I couldn't be more impressed by those guys. And, you go lose this game by 5, it probably doesn't matter at all. You won't be number 1 in Ken Palm, but it probably wouldn't impact you on a seeding line at the end of the year a great deal. You win a game like this, and it has a chance to really kickstart you, in this team. And you got a lot more opportunities coming. But, man, like I said, it's hard to have a better start than when one at against Houston in Houston this early in the year. Muted. Yeah.
Houston led by as many as 9 just a few minutes into the second half. I mean, it was not danger zone, but when you play a defense like that, that kind of a lead can feel like a mountain. And so Auburn really needed to kick things into gear. Janai Broome just started calling for the ball. And I almost said Hugh Freeze, we're in football mode. Bruce Pearl said after the game on the radio, Mike Burgermaster, who is actually listed, if you look on the staff directory, he's literally listed as the offensive coordinator.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so he's their head assistant coach in terms of calling offensive plays. Bruce Pearl credited him, said they worked on a bunch of stuff in practice, and you saw that kind of pin down action with Janai Broome under the basket. And when he gets rolling, we've seen this from him going back to last season. He is a second half player, and we've learned why since last season. He's got to feel the game out. He's got to, he's not the biggest or strongest guy. He's got to feel out the physicality of the game, what works and what doesn't. Then they come out of halftime with a plan on how to use him. He scores 16 points, 8 of 10 from the floor in the second half for Janai Broome, including sequences where it just really got the offense going.
Yeah, and focusing on getting back to the basket, Janai Broome, that's who he is. That's he can shoot the 3, but especially for this team, because of the other guys they've got, having him, we saw it even the other night, you got to pick your poison. You can say, okay, we're going to play you straight up. And if you play Janai Broome straight up, he's going to get to the rim. Now, can he finish and get some and ones? He did a little bit of that tonight. He hasn't been great at doing that. Now he's got to finish and make the free throws. But, the other night Vermont says, look, we're not going to let him beat us. And he passed the ball out. And then we saw tonight a couple of times he kicks one out after a rebound. Dylan Cardwell kicks one out to threes. All of a sudden you start to go, okay, inside-out basketball. That team last year, when they played their best, they didn't really do it against Yale, but down the stretch when they're playing their best, it was Janai Broome kind of being a point forward at times, a point center. And we saw a little bit more of that tonight, but boy, he says, look, I'm going to take the ball to the basket and score. He has the post moves, and it's hard for guys to defend because most guys don't have that anymore. He's a unicorn in that, the back to the basket. He's not Kevin McHale for the old school guys, but in this day and age, he's about as close as it gets. And people don't know how to defend that very well.
And then the other guy, I mean, we were talking about before we got rolling. Auburn hit 16 shots in the second half, 13 of them combined between Broome and Pettiford. Pettiford checked into this game with 13:42 left. He did not check out for the rest of the way, except for the very last possession where you sub in guys just based on what you want to do on defense against a final shot. He scores 15 of his game high 21 points in the second half, hit 5 3-pointers. People will remember those in the second half as Auburn started to come back and then took a lead. He also had a couple big 3-pointers in the first half, hit one off the side of the backboard in the corner. Kelvin Sampson calls timeout. Auburn goes up by 7. So that was important as well. But, Jason, it's funny. We have all these conversations in the offseason. It's a season-long, product of what are they going to do at point guard? What does the guard situation look like? Yada, yada. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you just get into a game and a guy's really good and it's working really well with him, sometimes you just stick with that guy. He was their point guard at the end of this game, and that is the highest end of what you expect. Like you said, from a 5-star point guard, these are the types of players. I was impressed with Houston's guards, just shot creating. Sometimes Auburn's defense is playing well and they just go out on the perimeter and make shots. That is the kind of player Auburn has missed over the last several years, and Tahad Pettiford was able to just go out and get it done in the second half.
Yeah, you're right. The guy that we talked about this, I think a little bit this past week about how you got to find somebody that can get you out of either a rut offensively or, Auburn had a little bit of a rut tonight in the first half where you had that kind of scoring lull. Looking at the second half, there's a couple things that jump out to me. Almost 10 of 12 from the free throw line. Broome had the only 2 misses, but you had, 5 other guys that hit their 2 shots. So that was a big part of things. The other part of things is you had 11 assists in the second half. That was a big deal. So you started to share the basketball a little bit more. I think that was big. But the other one to me is you mentioned, Todd Pettiford played 16 minutes in the second half. That rotation got pared down dramatically with a game on the line, and I think you found your 5 guys. Now, they're still going to play guys, but Denver Jones, 16 minutes, Janai Broome, 18 minutes. You look at Todd Pettiford, 16 minutes, Chaney Johnson, 17 minutes. So those 4 guys all played 16 or more minutes in the second half. So you start talking about, okay, here's the group. And it's a great thing. It's a great problem to have when you can go, okay, Todd Pettiford's feeling it. We're going to leave him in the game. Maybe next week it's Miles Kelly that's feeling it, and you go, okay, well, we're going to leave that guy in the game a little bit longer, and maybe you switch the rotation around a little bit. That's a great problem to have. But tonight they stuck with the guys that were playing the best down the stretch, didn't limit those minutes, and it paid off for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it on the Thursday show. Like, you're going to have a different guy every game almost to lean on. You're also going to have a different guy that maybe just kind of doesn't have it that night. I mean, Miles Kelly was supernova for a few minutes earlier in the week. Tonight, 5 points, goes 1 of 5 from 3, was in foul trouble for a lot of the night. And so you have that sort of luxury now. And the fact, all of that, Jason, I mean, this is going to be remembered as a crazy 30 hours for Auburn. We'll just kind of touch on it briefly. There's no way you're listening to this and you don't know. There's no way you haven't heard about it. But obviously Auburn had an in-flight altercation between Ja'Kai Howard and Jaheim Hudson on their flight to Houston. Turned right around, dropped those 2 guys off, got back on another plane. I think they got into Houston about right now yesterday.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been a crazy little bit.
Being a late game was a big deal. And the later it got, it was probably a better deal for Auburn because, heck, they was right in their wheelhouse after last night. So, crazy, just craziness. It shows you adaptability, and I don't know. I don't know. It also shows you a little bit of, even though it doesn't sound like it, it shows you maturity from the other guys.
Sure.
Who said, "Look, we're not letting that bother us. We'll worry about that when the time comes." But they were focused on playing basketball.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl said before the game, we'll see the next few days if we get him this week. We'll ask about whether there's suspensions involved or whatever moving forward. But he said on the pregame radio show, quote, "It's an unfortunate situation. We're dealing with it head on, but I'm not going to comment on it any further tonight." I think I saw he got asked about it after the game, didn't necessarily have a comment. So those two guys did not play. I think it was, and Janai Broom I saw talked about it after the game where he was like, "Things happen. We came here to play basketball."
Right.
It is a situation where Auburn helps itself, and I think things would have blown over pretty quickly. Auburn helps itself tremendously by winning this game.
Yeah, I have no question.
I mean, it just makes such a huge difference.
If you go out and lay an egg tonight, then it becomes an even bigger story because they talk about the distractions, all those things.
Yeah, which isn't right, which probably isn't correct.
Yeah, even though it quite honestly, it's two guys that in this setting, in this game, might have played a combined 8 minutes.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
They weren't going to be. They were going to be the last two guys probably in your rotation that were going to be playing tonight, and so it would not have impacted them a great deal. I don't know, unless there's a whole lot more that has happened or will happen in the future. I don't believe this is going to be this big long-term suspension thing. But we'll see. You don't ever know. Like I said, you don't know how people respond one way or another. We'll find out. But quite honestly, things like this can also steal a team a little bit. I mean, like not STEAL, but steal as in harden. I think it can make these guys, a little tougher. Going, okay, all right, people are messing with us. Let's go show them. And it certainly looked a little bit of that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of resolve from this team in the second half. We'll close out here, Jason. I mean, I kind of talked about it in the open. This is a long, grueling non-conference schedule for them. It's elite. It's potentially the best in the country. It's one of probably the top 5 in the country, along with teams like Alabama and Kansas and North Carolina and Houston as well. To get off on the right foot here, like somebody just posted it, we're not thinking resume time. This is not March. We're just excited for college basketball to be back. But if somebody just posted, like, that's a quad 1 win, and that will be, like, there's no question that's a quad 1 win. Like, you already have one. So that's something that we've had too many of those conversations about Auburn the last 2 or 3 years. Like, they didn't do well against quad 1. They don't have many wins, and their non-conference schedule has kind of been rocky. I'm not saying they're going to go out and beat Duke and Iowa State and all that, but you get off on the right track here with a win that is going to be, for the next 5 months, regardless what happens, this will be one of the best wins in college basketball.
Yeah, and now you're looking at, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 opportunities that will be quad 1 no doubters at the end of the year, no matter what you do. I mean, when you start talking about, obviously Duke's going to be a quad 1, no matter what happens there. When you think about that, you think about Iowa State, that's going to be a quad 1, no matter what. If you were to win a couple of more of those, in addition to the opportunities you're going to have in your own league, because there are going to be a bunch of those teams in this league too, you're going to have an opportunity. I saw a stat where Auburn was like 6-17 in the last 2 years in quad 1 games. You may have a chance to play 15 of those this year. You may have 15 quad 1 games. Remember, more than that. You may have 5 or 6 non-conference quad 1 opportunities. We saw it last year with Alabama. They didn't win many of those games. It didn't impact them on the seed line a whole lot either. But what it did is it prepared them for life. And what we saw tonight is a game that prepares you for life in an NCAA tournament. That was an NCAA tournament setting. That was an NCAA tournament game. That was an Elite Eight where we're going to the Final Four type game tonight. And to get that experience and get that win, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, all the way down to, hey, it's close, you got to make free throws. And free throws have been rocky. And Auburn goes, I guess 6 for 6.
Yeah, and 10 for 12, like I said, 10 for 12 in the second half and made all of them down the stretch. That's how you finish out a game.
Yeah, Auburn, I mean, they certainly celebrated at the end like it was that kind of game. You knew this is something that meant something to them to get off on the right foot in non-conference play. It is the highest ranked non-conference win in program history outside of the tournament. And that's,
right.
I feel like that's
regular season opportunities. There haven't been a ton of these.
Yeah.
I think about, like, I don't know that from a non-conference perspective, I guess in Maui a couple of years ago, that would have been, I don't know what Duke was ranked.
They were number 1.
They were 1. And I remember UNLV coming to Beard Eves in probably 1987, somewhere around in there, as a top 2 or 3 team in the country. But Auburn played Florida on Saturday, UNLV on Sunday. They played back-to-back days and obviously did not fare well against – I remember trying to think it was Freddie Banks, Gerald Patio, and Armin Gilliam. It was that team. But, this was huge win for Auburn, and a good way to back up a really strong performance against Vermont. And now you have an opportunity to go out and go, okay, let's go show that's who we are as you head into a very difficult next month or so.
Yeah. To answer your question, what we were kind of talking about, I mean, Houston played 20 quad 1 games last year.
There you go.
That's life in the Big 12, though. But as we've been talking about, SEC is not going to be that different.
SEC is going to be there now. I mean, it really is. When you talk about adding Texas to this league, obviously Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky. I mean, you're going to have that. Mississippi State's going to be a quad 1. That's a much better basketball team. Ole Miss is better. You're going to have those opportunities in this league. There's no question about it.
Huge win. No way to overstate it in any sort of fashion. Auburn takes down Houston, number 4 team in the country. The Tigers, check out the AP poll on Monday. They will undoubtedly be shooting up. But more importantly, it's a quad 1 win for their resume. They're number 1 in KenPom, 74-69 over the Cougars here late Saturday night. Is now into Sunday as we're sitting here recording. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the postgame pod. For Jason Caldwell, I am Nathan King, and we will talk to you guys soon.